case did not need to go to court. There was shame for children that are victims of crime in reporting. That is a huge problem that we face and we are struggling with still, is that people who are victims of crime often feel shame in reporting it because they feel as though they are somehow responsible for what happened to them. There are often power dynamics, and these are factors that cut across multiple types of crimes. But there are power dynamics as well as financial dependence. So in a domestic type case, in order to get people to report and for us to be able to investigate, we have to get beyond some of these barriers. And if the perpetrator is financially taking care of the entire family, it is very difficult for a person that has no means of their own to feel safe in going to the police and letting them know that they are being victimized. Oftentimes, the evidence no longer exists. Now, part of the beauty of being in the digital age is that we learn, in particular with social media, that Facebook never goes away. Your posts never go away. We try and teach our children that, and our teens, that it may seem cute now, but when you are applying for a job in 10 years, this post is going to come back to haunt you. But the reality is, when you're dealing with physical crimes, sometimes that evidence no longer exists a month, a day, a year, 10 years later. We do encounter problems when it comes to jurisdiction. So because we are on the border, we don't have the authority to prosecute crimes that happened in Mexico. If you're talking about either a trafficking type case that starts in one jurisdiction and ends in another, or a molest case that starts in one jurisdiction and ends in another, it's difficult when we don't know where the evidence is or if it exists. Oftentimes, our suspects will flee to Mexico, thinking it's a safe haven. But there are other ways that we can look for information in terms of social media, police files, and divorce records. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. Having different agencies investigating cases or within the same county can be a barrier to effective investigation and prosecution of cases. So if you have, there's an old saying, too many cooks in the kitchen will, spoil the soup. If you have 10 agencies within the county of San Diego that all have police powers to investigate, how do you know, who's responsible for what, and are these agencies speaking to each other? You also have non-law enforcement agencies such as children's services or medical providers that interview people, and they're not law enforcement, and we don't have access to those interviews, but they've taken interviews and evidence from witnesses. So how do we get that information? Because you need that information in order to build the picture of how this case started from point A to point B. Schools that will also interview and not tell the police what has happened. So that's another agency which may have conducted an investigation that you don't have access to. And of course, there is perspective. What is the